Right.
really timely. I mean, instantly, right? So
right.
I would think that's a really quick feedback loop. Though, but when you're talking about like purchasing over a 2 or 3 month cycle, I think your feedback loop could be, you have a lot more play with that, because clearly you have the time in between purchases that you could talk about what is that feedback to reinforce, the positive choice they made. It still needs to be timely, even if they're mailing something in or whatever that might be. Keep using mail.
Right.
You probably don't mail anything at this point,
Right.
but just the thought of that is slower. So that's the idea of like just understanding your audience well enough and the action you're asking for to understand when you need to deliver that feedback is super important. I talked a little bit already about shrinking the challenge.
Yeah.
And so what you usually want to do is look at what is the end goal? What is the ultimate goal of where we want to get them with this habit building? If this is our goal, and this is a common exercise I'll do with my clients, is work backwards from that. If this is our goal, what are the small incremental things that need to happen to get to that goal? So, whatever they might be for, obviously one of the big things that is a placeholder or a challenge in getting them to make a daily choice. I would assume your goal is, to have them drink this water daily and to purchase the filter, right? But purchasing the filter or buying the unit, whatever that might be, is definitely a step to getting to that daily drinking of water with your product, clearly. So, what are all the things that need to happen before they even make the choice to be drinking water daily out of your product?
So we're actually, we're working off, just the premise that they've already bought into it, so they're already users. We're talking to current users.
Okay.
Already bought into it, but it's like, then how do we keep them going with that habit?
Sure. Yeah, so the idea is that they've bought this thing, so then your ultimate goal is still the same, right? Is for the continued usage. So maybe there isn't the challenge of getting them to buy the unit, but there is a challenge of getting. I assume what you want them to do is to replace the filters, because that's where your ongoing revenue is, obviously. So it's still the same idea, and that's like what I would do is work backwards from that challenge. Get the folks in your team that understand your users the best. And to some degree understand your marketing, anyone that might be a touch point along that way, and do an exercise where you work back from that and understand what are all the things that happen in between there that would, impact them getting to that final point. And so trying to break it down to kind of what are the bigger roadblocks to the daily smaller roadblocks, and trying to understand how can we create, if you think of this as a game, almost, what's level 1? What's the easiest level that we need to build? Okay, so what's level 2 that's slightly more difficult? Level 3, level 4, so on and so forth. And I'm not suggesting you make this a game necessarily, but if you think of it as a game, in level 1, this happens, and this is the reward. Level 2, this happens, and this is the reward. It's a good way to kind of structure your thought around it.
And just to be clear, when you say end goal, that's the consumer's end goal or our end goal as a business that we're working back?
You want to think of it as your consumer's end goal.
Okay. So if their goal is to be healthier, for example, I want to be healthier and have whatever it is, we work back from that. Can you just speak a little bit more on that?
Sure. So I think healthier might be too broad of a topic to a goal. I think that's incredibly broad. I think, a goal that might be more attainable if you were workshopping this or thinking through it is, I want to make sure I drink all the water. As a consumer, I want to make sure I get all the water I need to be healthy and for all the benefits that go with being healthy, right? So that's where I think I would start that. And then you need, at some point, I would think through this at first as your consumer path, what are the things that need to happen for me to get to that goal? What are the things that are stopping me? And how can you guys interject in those places? And then at some point you need to put on your marketing hat clearly and understand, well, this is how we could interject and our product could answer this, or this is how we could create a community that doesn't even talk about our product, or a campaign that talks about the benefits of filtered water that, we are not even talking about pushing it. I'm just making shit up at this point, sorry. But you get the idea of kind of like that working backwards through the levels and then putting on your marketing hat and understanding where you can interject. Because I think if you look at it from your product-driven point of view, you've kind of missed the point of this exercise. Because the point of the exercise is to look at changing that person's personal behavior.
Right.
Not that has, you know what I mean? If you guys can provide that solution, that's great, but you're going to have so much more success if you can understand what that personal behavior is